Hello and welcome back for the second video tutorial to show you how to set up Desty script 2 using the config box. After the installation of DS2, a shortcut called DS2 config box was created on our desktop. It's very easy to use. We now just simply double click it to get the config open inside the config box, as we can see here. So with this config file, you can easily customize DS2 to satisfy your needs. Let's have a look at the first section here, which is activate games. By default, all the games are activated because the value is set to true. And if you would want to, for example, DS2 not be used on iRacing, you would just need to erase those the word true there and replace it with the value of false in lower size letters. From now on, DS2 will be off for iRacing. In the next section, set up the display for startup and pause. You're able to put in a username there, which will be displayed on the wheel on the SLI Pro at startup. This is the left panel, so I may want to make it your, and the right panel I will make name. There are 6 digits on the SLI Pro on either side, so therefore this string inside the quotation marks here needs to be 6 digits as well. Otherwise you will have it somewhere placed on the left or on the right, and the empty digits will be shown with zeros. So you would want to use either a spacebar or a dash like this for those digits which you don't need. So in the end, you are not allowed more than 6 digits, and you should use up those 6 digits with spacebars or dashes or whatever you would like to. So in this case, we got now 6 digits, and we need to do the same on the right panel. So from now on, it will show your name at startup. So in this section here, you can decide how long you want the difference between the lap you just finished and the session best lap will be shown in seconds. By default, this is set to 4 seconds, and if you may want to have it, for example, 6 seconds, you just need to replace the 4 with a 6, and it will display the difference between the lap you just done and the session best lap. The next line is for the difference between the lap you just done and your personal best, which is stored in the stats file. This is set to 4 as well, and it's just the same. If you want it to be 6, replace it with 6. The S-type display time is how long the session type is shown in seconds after you select a new session. In this case, it's 1.5 seconds. The same for the track display time. This is how long a track would stay on the digits of the SLI Pro after changing the track selection. You can as well just, for example, if 1.5 is too less and you want it to be 2, replace it with 2, just like this. In the next section here, assign quick menu keys. Those are the keys pressed to your game. The regular arrow keys sorry, are not working, I found so far, so I'm using the numpad arrow keys by default, which is numpad 4, 6, 8 and 2. And you could as well would want it to be, for example, for left it should be A, for right it should be D, up in this case then would be W, and down would be S. So this is as we know it from the shooter games. In this case, you would just need to set it in game, the quick menu left to A right to D, up to W, and down to S. And then you get another option here, which is the S key, is the separation key. At the moment, it's used just to have a break between pressing a menu key once and then the next. And if you sometimes experience some trouble that it is changing fuel or tires in the wrong way, or not at all, and the quick menu stays on your display on the screen, then you might as well just try it with a space bar in between those quotation marks and see if that brings a better result. I think it's not really necessary, so you could leave it just like it is. In the next section, we have the timings for quick menu keys. So this is the time how long the key will stay latched in to the game, and how long the gap between the next key press to the game will be. I found out 60 and 40 is quite alright, at least for my machine. But this may vary from computer to computer. So if you experience that fuel and tires are not chosen the right in the way it should, if the behavior is not right, you might experiment a little with those settings. I found values between 40 and up to 200, or even 20 up to 200 is the range which you should test first. Means the lower the value here, the faster you will be able to change your tires or change the fuel. But it's more likely that sometimes it gets screwed up. So if you would want, if it does screw up sometimes for you, you might want to use 100. This is 1/10 of a second. The key is latched in, and maybe even raise the time between key pressings up to 60. Timings for extra keys. This is how long the extra key will be pressed to the application you're using it. 800 is 8/10 of a second, is optimized for fraps to start recording in a loop. So if you press the button once, fraps will start recording in loop recording mode, and then if you press it again, it would go to a permanent recording, and with another press it will be off. The next section now is probably quite important. Here you can activate or deactivate stats and telemetry. So if you turn on stats, you will have to select the track you're going to and the session type you're going to, and from now on it will then record your personal best time for each track. It will count the number of laps you completed on every track, as well as how many laps you did in total. And the telemetry will create a file, .csv, which you can use then with OpenOffice, for example. And this is how DS2 is starting up in the first place. By default, both is set to true, and if you would want to record stats only, so that it will record your personal best laps for each track, but you would not want to start with telemetry on, just set it to false again. So now we're heading to the probably really important sections. There's always a choice. You can use either a fuel switch or fuel buttons. A switch would always be a 12 position rotary switch. Whereas an encoder, a rotary encoder, like the thumb dials on the Rosso wheel and similar, would be considered as 2 buttons. So don't get them confused. A rotary switch is a switch which you can dial from position 1 all the way up to position 12, and then it would stop. And a rotary encoder is a rotary dial which you can dial all the way around forever into one direction, and this is basically 2 buttons, and 1 button for up and 1 for down. So if you want to use a fuel switch, a rotary switch, yeah, with 12 position for fuel, you just leave fuel switch allowed to true. And if you want to use a rotary encoder or buttons, you might as well just set fuel switch allowed to false. In which case, the positions underneath doesn't matter because it's already deactivated. The whole switch thing, fuel switch, is completely deactivated. But if you want to use the fuel switch, you should leave it to true. And fuel switch equals 4 at the moment. This is the number of your rotary switch. There's a maximum of 6 rotary switches which can connect to the SLI Pro, so therefore you can choose between 1 and 6. By default, with Max Manager installation, rotary switch number 1 would be used to change whatever you see on the left panel of the SLI Pro. 2 is used for the right panel of the SLI Pro, and by default 3 is used for the global brightness, I believe. And so, but it depends on whatever switch you want to use, yeah. In my case it's 4. For the Russell wheel, usually it would be the large one in the center would be number 6. So in this case, if you want to use the large one in the center for fuel, just change the value to 6. And then we got the position mix 3, 2 and 1. 3 is the fastest, is rich, 2 is standard, and 1 is lean for fuel saving. So now you can select on what position you want fuel mix 3 to be. This is now the position from 1 to 12. So for example, if you would want to use 1, 2, 3, 1 for lean, 2 for standard, and 3 for mix 3, just change the value from to 3. Mix 2 would be on number 2, and position mix 1 would be on number 1. You could also place it 12, 11 and 10, or even leave a step in between, like 12, 10 and 9, for example. You don't need to put it 0, 9, even though it should be alright, but I believe it's better to put it just like this in 1 digit then. For the tire switch, it's exactly the same. If you want to use it, leave it to true, otherwise set it to false. Now we have a situation, fuel switch is 6 and tire switch is 6. So if both are activated, you should not use the same value, the same number. So probably you would want to use switch number 4 for your tire choice. The same thing here again with the positions. I like to have one position in between, so that's why it's 9753, so that I can click select the tire a few times to make sure that they did get it in the pits. You know, sometimes they screw it up, and that might destroy a race if you're going out on options when you're supposed to select inters. And that's why I left one step in between, so that I can go on to the position 3 for wets, for example, and off without selecting anything else, and then on to position 3 again and off to position 4 where I would not select anything. But this is again, it's all your choice. Brake bias switch, for once more, exactly the same thing. Leave it to true if you want to use it, set it to false if you don't want to use it. If you want to use, for example, rotary switch number 3 for brake bias, put in number 3 here, but I will leave it to 5, as I'm using my rotary switch number 3 for something else already. As well, you can choose the positions where brake to the front, brake to the neutral, and brake to the rear would be. And finally, the last switch we got is the session type select switch. This is only used for telemetry and or stats. So if you have turned off telemetry and stats, it will be deactivated actually. But if you're using telemetry either or stats or both, you need to tell the ES2 what type of session you're in. Is it qualifying, is it practice, single player or multiplayer, as this makes a difference in the times you'll be able to do, because the different grip levels of single player compared to multiplayer. Again, here you will have the choice to either use the switch here or buttons, which we will come to further down. But if you choose to use the session type select switch, there's a little difference to the other switches. In this case, you are able to select the switch number 3 in my case, but you are not able to assign the positions here. They are fixed. So on position 1 there will be practice, position 2, practice 2, and so on. And on 11 and 12, this is all for single player, and 11 and 12 is for multiplayer. So we're now through with the rotary switches, and now we're heading over to the section for buttons and rotary encoders, which are buttons basically. So telemetry on off button, you can now assign a button and activate a button to toggle telemetry on or off from your wheel while you're racing. I've made it by default for myself. It's set to false. It's deactivated because I would have telemetry on all time anyway. So therefore I don't need a button to turn it on or off, because I'm starting with it already and I would never want to turn it off. But if you would want to do so and just use it a few times when you're in a league race or something like that, or if you're practicing, then you probably want to start, let me go back a little, start off with telemetry false, as we have set it here, and set a telemetry button to be able to turn it then while you're already racing on. So activate the telemetry on button and select the button number. In my case, if I would use the button, I would use button number 13, but of course you can select any button between 1 and 32. So let's pretend your button for telemetry on and off would be 32, for example. Now we have the session type select buttons, which are doing the same as the session type select switch, but of course this time with buttons. If you have decided to not use a session type select rotary switch, you would want to use, or you would have to use the button for the session type if telemetry or stats is on. So in which case you would set it then to true to activate it, and select two buttons, assign two buttons with which you want to scroll through the session types. So let's pretend your button would be, I don't know, 18 for session type up, and you would want to assign one for down, which could be probably 15. Track select buttons is very similar, apart from the fact that you're not able to turn it on or off, because there is no choice for track select switch. So if you're it's either you're using telemetry and stats, and then you are in need to set up a button for track up and track down to scroll through, or if telemetry and stats, if both are off, those buttons will be off anyway. So select just the buttons you want to use there. The invalid lap button is used to indicate inside the telemetry that the lap you are on was invalidated, usually by corner cutting. So if you cut a corner on qualifying or even in a race, you might want to hit that button straight after you cut the corner to be able to see that the lap time you did there wasn't valid. It was including a corner cutting, so you you don't have to worry if you never ever get this time again. And if stats is on, it will not store this lap, which was including the corner cutting, as your personal best, because of course then later on you would then wonder again, where did that super fast lap come from, which you can never ever achieve again. So if telemetry and stats both are off, this button will be deactivated anyway. DRS button is a button which you definitely will use in the game, and if it's connected to the SLR Pro, you just need to put in the same value as in game. This is only used for the telemetry. It will just mark a lap with DRS used if you have used that button, if you have touched that button. The curse button then is similar to DRS button. It needs to be the same button as curse is assigned to in-game, which is in my case button number 9. Whenever you press that button, on the right panel of the display, it will display curse. Cur SPT is the speed, how fast curse is depleting. Yeah. So if you find out that curse is depleted on the SLI Pro earlier than in game or the other way around, you can change the amount of curse taken off per cycle when it goes through the script. So if it is depleting too fast, you would want to change that value down a little. For example, try instead of 12, 10 and see if it better fits. And if it is depleting too slow, means you still got curse left on the SLI Pro, whereas in-game there is no curse left anymore. Then higher up the value from 0.12 to, let's try it with 0.14 and then see if you still need to raise it or lower that value. Remember that curse is only depleting on a timed lap, so it will not be on your out lap. It will stay at 399 until you reach the start and finish line, start a lap, a timed lap, and then it will start to deplete if you hit that button. So then we got the fuel buttons. If you have chosen to not use a fuel switch, you would rather want to use fuel buttons. Then simply set those buttons to true to activate them, and then select a button number from 1 to 32 for mix 3, mix 2 and mix 1. For tire buttons it's exactly the same. The only thing is, of course, you should make sure that you're not assigning one button twice like we would have here now. Button mix 3 would be 12 and button enter would be 12 if we would turn this section on. If it is set to false, it should be alright. It shouldn't matter whatever value is there, because they should be off anyway. Next section, brake bias. It's exactly the same. Turn on the buttons if you want to use them, activate them, and select your buttons. Of course, brake bias is only available in F1 2012. So therefore, whatever is selected in the brake bias section, as soon as you're playing any other game like F1 2011 or F1 2010, those buttons will be off anyway. And the same for wing buttons. Wing buttons is only for F1 2010. So in the final section there is the extra buttons. Here you can activate and deactivate the extra buttons again and assign a button number. So in my case, I'm using the extra button, but I'm only in need of one extra button. And therefore, I'm setting the other two, which I am not using, I simply set to 99. And now assign the extra button keys. So here you can assign which key is pressed to the application once you press button number 3. In my case, F9 is the key which is pressed to Fraps to start recording. In the README file there's a list of the special keys like F keys and stuff, how they should be typed in here. Once you're done with setting up your config, you simply need to click on the save button here, and if it got saved, you have seen it here in the little window. But if you have fucked up the config somehow by erasing a lot of lines, for example, yeah, you should just click don't save and reopen the config box, in which case it's all there again. But of course it's the way it was before you put in anything and deleted anything. So I think that's it for now. I will head off for a cup of coffee, and in my next tutorial I will show you how to assign the right panel switch and its positions. But before I do so, I want to mention that our homepage elitef1.net got revamped, and I believe it's really looking great now. Thanks to Ferris and Trev for that. You might come and visit us there. You can, of course, there's a section for the Desty script to download. You might want to maybe sign up with the to the friendly races which are going on at the moment, and if you like it, you might want to stay with us and start the next season. We are doing friendly races at the moment, like I said already. Then 25% mini tournament where we would do 4 25%ers in one row. Then we have the 50% championship, so half distance, and then of course the full distance championship with the strict rules, with a cockpit cam only, and everything, all assists banned and all of that stuff, which is our core actually. Okay, so yeah, that's it now really. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it, and have a nice day.